guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be my dedicated review of Below Us, which is a sci-fi novel, and I had not heard of this author. I'll put the name here because I'm just spacing on it right now, but it was decent. It was, there was a lot going on. It wasn't my favorite sci-fi novel ever. I feel like the author definitely could not help himself from adding in so many sci-fi elements to where it started to remind me of the movie In Search of the Castaways, if you've ever seen it. It's got every single natural disaster ever. And I feel like this is that with sci-fi elements. So you have all these elements like the disease that's kind of affecting all the animals and all the humans. And then you have the, we are trying to harness this energy source, but we ended up cracking the Earth's core. So we've let out all these things and then we don't know what to do. And that's affecting the whole world, every single person. And it's also, causing earthquakes and causing problems. And then you have the robots, and then you have the that survival end of times, kind of stuff that you have to go through where it's okay, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to survive? And then you have, which I think, small spoiler, is aliens eventually. So it's not just aliens, it's not just robots, it's not just the end of the world, it's not just a global, mass casualty event, it's not just a disease that's affecting all the humans. It's all of it. It's all of it. So I like the book fine. And I do think that I would have liked it more if it would have stayed with a different main character, because the main, this is a multiple POVs. So you're getting the main character is Wyatt, and he's just not my favorite of the perspectives that we get. So I'll start with him. And this is going to be spoilers throughout, so just if you want to read it, it's, like I said, 3.5 stars, decent, sci-fi, lot going on, but yeah, recommend it if you like that kind of style and that genre. So we start with Wyatt, and Wyatt has just broken up with his girlfriend not that long ago. He's living in New York, originally from California, and this is all seemingly very important to his backstory, although I was the ex-girlfriend thing got very old and very tiresome to me because I just didn't feel like we needed to keep hearing about this. There's a reason she's brought up, but I don't like that it was a central point of his character to have the ex-girlfriend. And then of course there's the new love interest, which I'm sorry, I'm a romantic, okay, I'm not a romantic person, but I enjoy the idea of romance as much as the next person, I think. And I just could not get behind the fact that he kept seemingly thinking about these women and having this oh, well, maybe she's the one. And I'm like, you are in the apocalypse. You are trying to survive. You are fighting for your life, man. Stop this lovelorn. I don't know. I'm torn between this, my ex, and did I make the wrong choice? But then there's this new girl. I do not care. And you should not care. We don't have time for this. This is not to the point where okay, everything's horrible and gone bad, but repopulate the earth time. No, we don't need to be thinking like this, Wyatt. Move on from this. So I realized that, yes, you would still have these inner thoughts maybe, just because, the end of the world is happening doesn't mean, I guess, that you stop having feelings, but I kind of wanted him to have less feelings, less talking about this, less of the let's explore these romantic options. I got over that very quickly. So Wyatt has moved to New York from California, which is a big change if you've ever moved from one side of the US to the other. I've moved from the West Coast to the South, and it's quite different. So he's having that whole oh, this is such a culture shock. It's so different from California. And he hears that his ex-girlfriend's dad, as he's working on Wall Street, he hears that his ex-girlfriend's dad is about to unleash this new energy, and he's going to harness the ocean to create this new energy and somehow, use the power of the ocean. It's going to revolutionize energy as we know it, and it's going to be clean energy, and it's amazing. And so the ex-girlfriend's dad is Garner Vicus, and the ex-girlfriend's name is Isabel. So he is told by his boss, they're an investment company, hey, go get your ex-girlfriend's dad to invest with us, and go try and make contact with him. He's about to unleash this new thing. It's going to be really great for our company. So of course he does that. He goes to try and meet with him. And while that's happening, there's also another main character named Luna. And she's a reporter, and she's trying to break the big story, get the scoop on this new energy source. So she ends up meeting with them, and it's kind of the interaction of you know, her meeting with Wyatt, and you know that they're going to be main characters, and he is instantly attracted to her. It's like, oh, she's, you know, she's so interesting, she's so great. And it was very insta-lovey, which was weird because I'm like, these are not teenagers. And I felt like it was very much like, there's even like a psychic that tells him like, there's so many elements to the story, but like that tells him like, hey, look out for this girl. She's going to have whatever it was, a certain color hair. And, you know, she's the one who's going to help you get through the future. It's going to be rough. And I was like, okay, well, here we go. Here's the setup. So on the day of the big energy release, there's of course catastrophe. They've dug too deep. They've cracked open the Earth's core. And as we've already seen throughout the book, there's been these mutated animals and they're running amok and attacking people. And then it shows that humans are also infected. And when they get infected with this mud, which is what's called in the book, they become like animalistic. First, there's like this like burst of like anger and like aggression, and then they just kind of become like zombie-ish. The other main characters are going to be Blaze, who's a construction worker who's also like seeing all the mutations. He's in another state. And then his son, Luke. And I wish that these would have been our main characters. They were by far the most sympathetic. They were the most interesting. Their journey made me like, oh, I want to get back to them. Not that Blaze was such an interesting character, but he's the most fleshed out. He has a wife that died. He has a son he's trying to raise by himself. There's, you know, Luke's being bullied. How are we going to deal with this? So you felt the most connected to him as a character, and he seemed the most real because his reactions of like, I need to save my son against all odds. Like I need to do, you know, as a parent, like I get it. Like I would do anything for my kids. So I definitely felt the most connected to him as a character. And I thought his story and where he goes and the like quest he's on as he's trying to survive just as a normal guy who has no clue. He doesn't know what's going on in these other places. Whereas like Wyatt and Luna kind of have a front seat view of like, oh, hey, look, we just cracked open the Earth's core of trying to harness the power of the ocean. And like, they know what's going on. And he's just kind of hearing about it and getting little snippets here and there. So that happens. They, you know, figure out they've cracked open the Earth's core. Everyone's kind of scattered for a bit. So you have Wyatt is off doing his thing. He thinks Luna died because they were all in the same area when like everything went to heck. And so they're trying to survive with these people who are mutated. And then there's, you know, the mutated animals, and their mutated animals are quite aggressive and seem to be, you know, kind of taking people out, whether intentionally or unintentionally, because they're just huge and like crazy and, you know, got tentacles. And it's like, I feel like the problem is with this book, and I don't think he was writing for younger people. I think it was written for adults, but it wasn't realistic to me in that like, there's a lot of people in the United States who own guns, and like whether you do or don't, it's not the point. The point is that a lot of people do. So it didn't make sense to me that there wasn't like bodies all over. For one thing, if you had a mutated population, even if there's an 8% survival rate, so like that's, you find out later that only 8% are immune to this mud that's turning all the people, like mutating them and turning them into fish people essentially. Which I don't know why it's turning them into fish people, but it is, and then they all kind of get called back to the ocean. It's very odd. So you find out 8% survive. So you still have to think, a lot of those people are going to instantly see like people turning into fish-like zombies and start shooting. But we don't get that, and I feel like the author was really shying away from like things that would be disturbing. Like there would be dead bodies everywhere. There would be dead mutated creatures everywhere because people are going to shoot first. Like they're going to start shooting as soon as things start going badly. And I think he really shied away from that, which is unrealistic to me in a lot of ways. The end of the world scenarios, it would be much darker than what's portrayed. And it's like, even 8% is still like when you have millions of people, they would still see a lot more people than what we see in the books. Because they only see a couple of people along the way as they're like going through that have not mutated or changed. And I think that was kind of him not wanting to have to fully like deal with the reality of what this would have caused. So when everything goes bad, Garner Vicus is presumed dead, but he tells Wyatt, you need to get to these robots, because there's robots. And these robots are going to be the key to everything. They know the plan. Like we have these preparations in place for like this could, you know, if something went so horribly wrong, and there's a place you guys can get to safety, but you have to go get the robot from my penthouse. Then you have to connect with my daughter Isabel, who's his ex, and you guys will each have a robot, and you need to get them to meet together, and then the plan will be known from there, which is convoluted. It is convoluted, but that's where we're at. So Wyatt is on his way to get the robot at the penthouse, and that's his like first mission. And then you have Isabel's kind of in California, and her like point of view is a little bit like she's every once in a while kind of thrown in, but we don't know much about Isabel, except for that she's decided that since it's the end of the world and Wyatt's gone, like she's back in love with him, which is weird because they separated because she cheated, but not important, at least not to me. But I mean, the story might think it's important. So they're trying to get the robot, and then Blaze and his son Luke, well, they were trying to like, you know, live and survive. They're in this town where there happened to be a building that was connected to Garner Vicus, like one of his old warehouse buildings. And so they go there trying to like survive, and they find a robot that has not been assembled. And this is like, it's all there, and they put it all together. And like, this is like very like, oh, happenstance, and like so many like things that happen that you're just like, okay, this is stretching it a little bit with like what I can believe. But they put all the components of the robot together, and this is the first like prototype of this robot that is the one that is also what Wyatt and Isabel are looking for. So this robot, though, you find out is different in that it is like, how do you say it? It's self-aware. Like, this robot doesn't need to be like told what to do. It's not programmed. It just comes up with its own stuff. It just does what it wants. It doesn't have like any overriding things that you can do to like make it do what you want. It follows Blaze and Luke because they're with him, and you know, he's like, okay, well, you're my friends and we're gonna go on this mission together. But this robot doesn't like have any kind of like restrictions on it. So that's why it was disassembled, and this robot's just been sitting in a warehouse, and they luckily found it. And it's obviously like very capable, and as they're going along, it helps them a lot because it can, you know, move really fast and, you know, shoot people and take care of things for them. Which, yeah, I don't know, robots shooting people, I guess that's like a morality issue we can talk about later. I will say, like, as the book progresses and they kind of, you know, or they find the robots, and it's them and the robots, and it's more people joining, and then people getting infected, and kind of like, you know, you're seeing the die off of different people from the groups. There's a couple things that I just didn't like. One of them being when Wyatt and he meets up with another woman as he's going to get the robot, and her son, and they get the robot, and then Luna ends up, you know, I'm not dead, hey, I'm here. So they all end up traveling together. Well, they get to a town that is a mining town that hasn't been affected by this sludge, this mud situation, and they're not infected. But because Wyatt and all of his people, like the people that are with him, have been surrounded by it and have it all over their clothes, they're, you know, they basically are just walking contagions. They go into this town and infect everybody, and the book kind of plays it off as like, well, these people were like kind of, you know, like hicks. And I really like, you know, like, oh, well, you know, they weren't like the best people. And I kind of didn't like that. It really felt like these New Yorkers and these people from like, you know, the East Coast coming in, like the elites, and they just came into this town where they were fine, where they were surviving, where they hadn't been contaminated, and then they just didn't care and just contaminate all of them and use their resources and then left. And the people are played off as being bad when like they didn't really do anything until they saw that like, oh, hey, yeah, you brought this disease in and killing off all our people. And then of course, yeah, they want to kill them. And I'm like, yeah, we have a messy like view of what's right and wrong in this. And I feel like the book is wrong in the way that they're portraying these people. But that was a side issue. I just really felt like I was like, oh, that's kind of not okay, you know? But yeah, all those people end up getting infected, and then they just book it out of there. They're like, oh, whoops, sorry about it. So yeah, so then the end of the book is kind of them all once again kind of being separated out. So Luna ends up falling in as they're traveling. She hooks up with her brother, and there's different characters, like I said, they go along the way, and they're trying to just survive. And she ends up getting separated from the group. So she's separated. Isabel's still in California. She's trying to figure things out with her robot. And then the robots are kind of able to communicate with each other. And the one, though, that's with Blaze and Luke, the father and son duo, he's separated. Like, he knows about them and they're all kind of aware, but because he's able to just do whatever he wants and he's an independent and like robot that can think and do whatever he wants, the other ones kind of are like wary of him. But at the end, you find out, spoiler, surprise, whatever. And like this has been hinted at throughout the whole book. Like Garner Vicus did this on purpose. This is the billionaire guy who was going to harness the energy from the earth. This was all part of his plan. So all this like that he was claiming was an accident. Oh no, I didn't know we drilled too deep and unfortunately we unleashed all this stuff on humanity and we've killed all these people. Like, no, he did it on purpose. Knowing that there was only an 8% survival rate, knowing that like the whole world would be decimated. He did it all on purpose because he saw that when they released these like spores and these things that had this contagion in it, this disease, it had like brought a person back to life for a few seconds. When they breathed it in, they didn't live. They eventually like died as they, had been. They went back to their original state of being dead, but for a few seconds it like brought this person back to life. So he believes that he can eventually bring his wife, who is dead, back to life. And this whole thing was done to bring back the dead wife. And wow. Also, you find out that Garner Vicus, spoilers, is part robot. So at least part of him. So at some point or another, all of this is going to need to be explained. I don't know if I'm going to read the next book or when I will get to the next book, but I don't know if there was like, because at the end you're with him and he's like, gets cut and then you see that he has robotic parts and like an inner core that is part of the robotic. So I don't know if like at some point he died and he brought himself back with a robot body or like what happened, but I was just like, okay, that's a lot for me at the end. And also like, it's just a lot for the story. Oh, and the other thing that's the big reveal is that the robots tell them, hey, we're realizing the one robot who's like knows everything for whatever reason. The prototype that was decommissioned but is, now fully self-aware and can do whatever. He tells them, I have in all my backup memory that I can access all the tests that they did previously with this energy and all the things that they did. They knew about this contagion. They knew what would happen. And he wants to kill Garner Vicus because of what happened and what he did and what he unleashed on humanity. But also he tells them, like, this isn't our only problem, okay? Because there's aliens coming back. So not only do they have everything that they're dealing with the mutated animals, most of the population is gone. They have turned into fish people and returned to the ocean. But now they have aliens that have originally lived here apparently being awakened, or they've learned now that they're they can come back, I guess, because as all this is happening and these things are being released from the Earth's core, they start terraforming, I think that's right, the planet to like be habitable for them. So yeah, so we're gonna get aliens at some point. I don't know what kind of aliens or where they're coming from. But yeah, so it's like, okay, the people, because he basically is very vague, but he's like, the people that were there, the entities that were here before us are returning. It's very like sinister. So yeah, that's the book. Lot going on. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like I said, I liked it. It was interesting. I feel like I want the book to be about Blaze and Luke. Like I want the father-son duo, get rid of the romance, get rid of it wasn't really romance, let's be real. But like get rid of like Nick having to deal with the ex-girlfriend and the new love interest. Like that was so boring to me. And I'm having a problem with Luna as a character. She was very decent. Like I think a journalist character is interesting. And she definitely brings that whole like, okay, well, I need to get to, the bottom of this. I need to figure out the story. And that's just her personality. So she's a decent character. But I really feel like the father-son duo, like kind of with any apocalyptic end of the world situation, it's just enough to have them and follow their story. And they have like the strongest case for like, okay, I really want them to live. They are the most sympathetic. They have the bond. They have the shared trauma of the past with the mom dying. And I really like them. So that's my thoughts. Let me know if you've read this book or what you thought about it and what you're reading this week. I am trying to finish a few things, so we'll see what I get to in November. But if I don't talk to you guys before Thanksgiving, have a happy Thanksgiving if you're in the States, and I will try and talk to you guys soon.